This is the kind you press record because they're going to miss all the good stuff. Oh my God, Luce, I see you. I just like want to cry. Hi,
We
friend.
could do that. That would be appropriate to
Can we
start
just
that way with a
cry
little
for the?
cry.
I swear, I'm like really tearing up. I miss you.
I miss you. It's so
This
good
is
to
how
see
Lucy and
you.
I started our podcast. She said, "Is there any prep?" I said, "I want to talk about everything. So you could decide, or you can ask Divine what they want you to talk about, because I could literally have you on for a 10 episode series. I find you so lovable, brave, and fascinating. There's your prep."
And I accept 10 and beyond.
Uh, oh, so good to see you. Lucy, what do you think we're really craving? I think that's a good place a good, real general place to start. And then we can talk about
Yeah.
the interesting things you think about that.
I think we're craving joy.
Mm,
I think we're craving the stuff that wins awards like determination and grit. But I think what we're really craving underneath that is joy.
that's so good. Where did you learn that? How do you know that?
Life experience in IntenSati. Really, that's it. I was retelling this story recently of the first time I took IntenSati, which of course you teach and I teach. And it was all about joy. And the person I was talking to was like, that's it for you, isn't it?
Mm,
Joy. And it really started to click that's it, that everything I'm extrapolating, but it's me, everything I'm craving, connection with people, success, rest. It's because I want to experience joy, because I want
yeah,
to feel at peace. I don't want peace just for stillness. I want peace because it brings me joy. I want fulfillment because it brings me joy.
yeah. Even contentment, right? I want contentment because it brings me joy, like feeling safe and grounded is joyful. Got it.
Yes,
Like I always say things like that, and I think about myself like 15 years ago, and she just my 15-year ago. So I was like, "What are you talking about?"
I know. I know.
How did you come? How'd you come to the practice of IntenSati? That's a good one. How'd you come to the practice?
Well, well, I thought I was craving something else. So I moved to New York City about a little over a decade ago. And right when I moved, I joined the gym because I had this idea that if I lost the weight I needed to lose, that everything else would fall in line. Finally get a boyfriend. Spoiler alert, I have a wife, so I was on the wrong track there. But I get a boyfriend
That's
who
such a that's
respects
its own
me.
podcast. That's what I mean. I'm like,
That's
I don't know, Lucy. There's 15,000 things I
that's
want to talk
episode
to you
number
about.
2. Yeah. Yeah. I thought someone would love me. I'd be more respected at work. I'd be taken more seriously. It was just the weight, right? Let me just go to the gym and get the weight off.
You're on the
And so
right
I joined
podcast for that,
Equinox.
Lucy.
I joined Equinox at the time, and a friend of mine who was a member kept saying, "You have to take this class in IntenSati. You have to take this class. You would love it." And I read the description, and I was on board for the first sentence, right? Like high intensity movement with music, and then it said paired with spoken affirmations, and I said, "Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'm going to the gym not to be seen, not to be heard, to blend into the background, lose this weight, and get out the door. Like, I don't want anyone looking at me, listening to me, knowing I'm there, acknowledging me." And after weeks of insistence, I went to my first class. It was taught by Patricia Moreno, who is the founder of IntenSati. At the time, IntenSati was 15 years old. It's celebrating its 21st birthday this year.
Happy
So,
birthday, IntenSati. And so many people listening are celebrating with you. It's a big thing in our
yeah,
community.
yeah. So I went into my first class, and Patricia's at the front of the room, and she's just striking in every way. I already was like, well, I'm going to like this class just by the sound of this woman's voice. But the first thing she said, and I learned later that every IntenSati class has its own theme and focus. And so that day, what she had said is, among other things, today we are going to experience joy for no reason at all. And I looked around the room and I was like, okay, well, that may work for these ladies. That may work for you. And I played my like unique pain story. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know what I'm going through. She doesn't know what has to change in my life for me to experience joy. So I'll go along for the ride, but like eye roll. And at the end of class, I'm like shouting and screaming, and oh my God, and like, right? Exploding. So happy, so lit up, so high in my own supply. And
Mm.
I went to literally every class since then.
You
Like
just
I
became
would,
like a complete follower after that. It was just like that was it.
yeah. Like if my old boss is listening, I used to schedule doctor's appointments, fake doctor's appointments, so I could go to the Friday morning classes. Like I needed, I at that point, I needed it. I needed to be fed it until I kind of could understand how to do it on my own. I began to crave that. I need this
Mm.
feeling. I need this feeling. And I was starting to realize that what I was doing in the class was creating it. I didn't feel like I was at the point yet where I could create it on my own, but I was starting to get, wow, I've had this power the whole time. And I remember in my third or fourth class crying at the end of class, happy, sad tears, being like, I have lived so many years powerless, and the power's been right here all along.
Yeah.
What I've been seeking has been right here, and I've just been had my eyes closed.
That's such a beautiful way to say it. And then how did that transformation happen after that, right? You're saying so many, I mean, certainly on this podcast, you're saying all the buzzwords, right? You're like dissatisfaction with my body, thinking that my weight was going to heal like you're saying all of the
Mm-hmm.
things. And I don't know if that's a struggle for you today, but how did that transformation happen to you from that first class to now, by the way, if you didn't listen to the intro, she's like the CEO of IntenSati. An amazing story in and of itself. But how did the transformation happen for you?
Yeah, at first I didn't quite realize what's happening. I just knew that I loved the feeling when I was there,
Mm.
and I didn't know yet that it would translate outside. I kept going for my fix, like oh, I gotta go feel good. I gotta go feel good. Maybe it was 6 months in that I started to realize that the outside life was changing too, outside the gym. That I was more easygoing on myself, or I used to be hard on myself. And I was making choices that gave me more of that feeling, that gave me more of the joy that I hadn't been making before, whether that had to do with food or moving my body or spending my time or getting out of bed on the weekends instead of spending all weekend in bed. Like I was making these choices from my heart, not my head, not because there was a reason. I looks like I look back and found myself. I'm like, what have I been? Wow, things have changed, and I didn't realize they'd changed.
Wow.
Like
So sort of
an
without
inside
even
out thing.
knowing it, the choices that you were making were in better alignment with the person that you were trying to become versus being stuck in that prison of our own making.
Yeah, like I've been trying forever to change the things that I did so that it would make me more likable to others and myself. So I was like doing the doing and doing, hoping the being would change. And what I was doing in IntenSati, without knowing it, luckily I've learned that's what I was doing now. But I was focusing on the being. Who am I being? What am I focusing on? What am I saying to myself? How am I carrying myself in my physiology? That's changing who I'm being.
Right.
And that ended up changing the doing from a natural place instead of a force.
Like you really switched all of your consumption in a kind of gradual way by that's a beautiful way to say it. I mean, it's actually such an interesting idea, right? Like, and I always say, like, it's about the food and it's not about the food. There's a part where it's like, if you're addicted to sugar, we got to deal with that rather quickly or teach you how to meal regulate or whatever it is.
Yeah.
After you know that, there's very little to do with food. And in
Right.
fact, the more we focus on it being about food, the more we're just promoting diet culture and everything like that. And I
Yeah.
really like that idea in eating disorders, which is that it's a dysfunction of nourishment and nurturing. And what you're saying is,
Mm-hmm.
well, I switched all of my nourishment and then that food started to make sense. And
Yeah.
stuff
And
started.
I used to, before I started IntenSati, I used to wake up on a Saturday morning and know that I wasn't going to answer any text messages and knew that I was just going to go downstairs to Dwayne Reed, buy that mega size bag of smart food popcorn and like a huge Swedish fish.
Yeah,
And then
you and I
whenever
would
that
have a
was
great
done, I would
time.
order
Yeah.
food.
Hmm.
And I just beat myself up so much by not for not being able to stop doing that. I couldn't figure out how to stop doing that. I was
Mm.
trying to force myself to stop doing that. I'd be like, I would make a rule, okay, you're not allowed to ever go in that Dwayne Reed for anything. Of course, that wouldn't stick, right? And it really sort of like washed off me about a year into IntenSati. And the same thing, and sort of the same thing I was saying. I looked back maybe a few weeks out, and I haven't done that in a few weeks.
Mm. But you were
Where I
doing
was
it
trying so hard to
consistently,
force
right?
the
You were
stop
like,
by the second.
mhm.
Yes,
It was like, but
yes,
like,
like I
because that's what I love that Daniela Port quote, she says, love yourself enough to be consistent. I think it's such a important, like you got religious very quickly on IntenSati. You were like, okay, I'm going to go back and I'll
Oh
go
yeah.
back and I'll go back and I'll go back, and made it a priority.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, right? You made it a priority and then it worked for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly did.
Wait, so do you ever struggle with body image now?
I do in a very different way.
Hmm.
Well, maybe some of the same ways. It used to be top of mind all the time.
Yeah.
I was never not thinking about how my body looked. And I was blaming it for a lot of the things that I deemed wrong in my life. And,
Hmm.
coveting other people's bodies, thinking that they had everything else, all their other ducks in a row just because of how their body looked.
Right.
Um, and there's so much of that has changed now. My focus is not there all the time. Sometimes what I find now is when I'm in my IntenSati bubble and I'm teaching class and I'm in a sports bra and I'm like size 12. I have abs under there, but they're not on the top. There's
Mhm.
there's a nice layer of fat on top, and it is what it is. And I'm in my zone, and I'm loving it, and I'm in it. But then I'll go maybe to a place with other fitness professionals, and all of a sudden I'll say, "Well, I'm a fitness professional, but I look like this," and that's when I want to shrink to the back of the room.
Mm.
When I'm with my people, I'm in my room, and we're all smiling and laughing and doing it. I can look at myself and say, "Wow, I've come so far."
Yeah.
And then the place where I feel back where I was is it's really fitness related and how I'm supposed to look if I'm leading a fitness movement.
So interesting. I think you, well, I just think you're absolutely perfect. Always have, always will. And I think that for me, at least, there's like an appreciation when everybody's body doesn't look perfect. I'm working on that right now. I'm going to my fitness class that I go to with all these girls who are like probably 20 years younger than me. And I've just made this decision. I hate clothes in general. Like, I don't like to wear a lot of stuff, just
Yeah.
it feels very wasteful to me. There's mirrors everywhere. This is very Patricia. It's very infused with Patricia, I think. I carry her around with me wherever I go. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I just started wearing a sports bra and leggings to the class. And I have
Mm-hmm.
so much extra skin because I used to weigh 325 pounds. And I made a decision after getting some of it taken off in the beginning that was going to be the end of my relationship with plastic surgery because my body had been through so much. Like, and I know myself, and if I, one's too many, and a thousand's not enough. And so I just kind of work some IntenSati when I'm in the class because
Mm-hmm.
so much comes up for me, especially given who I'm in a class with. And I just try to focus on the gratitude for my body. So
Mm-hmm.
profound, like just continuously. It's one of the
Mm-hmm.
most challenging things I never really think about or talk about it, but it's one of the most beautiful and challenging things I've ever decided to do. I love that what we're saying though, which is that yes, we are both like really in this positivity, joy space, and yet there's still a struggle there. How do you make,
Mm-hmm.
and do you ever like shame yourself that you're this person in this movement and still struggle? Like how do you come to terms with that?
That does pop up. The shame pops up, but what I feel lucky for is that I do have this practice and we are in this positivity space. And IntenSati at first glance can seem very just like light and love. And especially because we use positive affirmations, people think it's like only positive language, only positive thoughts, no negativity allowed. Like
Right.
if you look at it for 1 second, you might think that, but what you know and what I know is it's actually not that at all.
At
That
all.
IntenSati, the word IntenSati comes from intention and sati is a Pali word that means mindfulness or awareness without judgment. So first it's an awareness of what's here, not closing our eyes to what's here and saying, no, no negativity. There's no negativity here. There's only positivity. It's an awareness and an acceptance first for what is, and then a choice for what's next.
Mm.
So when I do feel shame, instead of being like, no, 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 only love yourself. I'm lucky that I have the tool to say, I am feeling shame, and this is what it feels like in my body. And this is the physical sensation, and this is where it lives,
Yeah.
and let it play out for its 90 seconds. And then, okay, well, what do I choose next? Do I want to bring it up again and let the spiral start? And I'm not perfect. And sometimes that's what I choose. Sometimes, like, yes, I want to
Right.
I
I'm
punish myself for saying,
terrible.
oh, I'm not perfect at all, but I'm practicing. I'm
Yeah,
practicing. And then, but other times I'll choose something else
I try
and let that play
really,
for 90 seconds.
yeah, I try really hard when it comes up. I think, I think I have done so much to harm my body today. I'm just gonna love you exactly as you are. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
golden quote, like, can't that body says,
Mm-hmm.
can't you just love me exactly? It's
I love
such
that
an,
quote.
yeah, me too. Can't you just love me exactly as I am today? And I just try. It's very hard. I really recommend it to everybody though. It's sort of like all those mirror affirmations and really it's a really advanced practice of learning to love yourself. I was in a group yesterday with some of my clients. A woman was talking about her body and she was just saying, how absolutely disgusting she found it. And I was thinking about diet culture and how the longer we try to strive for this perfectionism, the more we breathe air into that movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's just so how they've captured the system. It's like as long as I'm
Mm-hmm.
not enough, that's my participation in anti-diet. Like I'm just gonna work and love myself the exact way I can.
Yeah. And that could really feel like you're saying, pushing against the current,
Say the
like with
least.
every step.
Say the least. I don't even know how I do it sometimes. Just all these like hard bodies, and I'm like 45 with like, my extra skin. I mean, it's like I mean, by the way, blessed with a body that moves and works, and certainly after everything I've put it through. But yeah, I think it's there's that part that I always do in my practice of IntenSati, which is like that gratitude burst at the end where we just thank all of our body. And I've just seen it
Yeah.
transform people. A woman in one of my retreats was like, I was saying that I love my belly, and I actually believed it for the first time ever. And it's like,
Mm.
I don't know, you just never know when it's gonna stick. That's why you gotta keep on trying
Right.
with these
Right.
long-standing things. Yeah.
That's what we say in Intensati is if you're saying these affirmations and that there's some that don't feel true, first take notice of the ones that feel crunchy, because
Yeah.
those are probably the juiciest ones for you. Like the ones that are easy to say, cool, great. The ones that are hard to say, let's pay a little extra attention there. But you don't have to believe it to say it.
Yeah.
You and it's not again that you close your eyes and just saying it non-believing, but we believe that a belief is a thought that's repeated. So if I repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, it starts to become a belief. So I don't have to believe it the first time. I have to make a choice. Do I want to keep this belief or keep whatever beliefs in the way of me believing this?
I have to
Which one do I want
decide
to
that this
keep?
is a
Which
belief
one do
I
I
want
want
to
to
buy.
repeat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my beloved Lucy, you have had, pardon my language, but it's essential, but you've had a fucking year and a half, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Longer than that, but yeah, two
Yeah,
years
longer than
probably.
that, for sure.
Yeah.
Look, we're already crying.
Yeah. I know. I'm
Like,
like, hold
like,
on, hold on.
I know, me too, please. I like didn't even put on makeup. I don't even have a light on. I'm like, it's just gonna be messy, and I'm not even playing it. So,
Yeah.
Luce, like, I feel like I've every note I've written to you, everything I've said to you in the last 2 years is just like, oh my God, you teach us so much. Oh my God, you're teaching us
Mm.
so much. Oh my God, you're teaching us so much. And I'll tell you, anytime I do a class, an IntenSati class with my community before Patricia died, I like share because there's so many of the series that she did when she was sick. And I like
Hmm.
share, I'm like, this particular thing that we are doing right now was written by a woman who like had this diagnosis. And so it's like, if she can
Yeah.
write this, like, I'm like, I just offer that to you. I offer that to you when we're going to be doing this practice today.
Mm.
I'm just wondering, like, everything, like, how have you done all of this? Like, what has it been like? What do you have to teach us today, my beloved Lucy?
Oh, I wish with all of my being that I was not the teacher of this.
I know, I
I
bet.
never wanted to teach. I never really experienced loss until last year.
Mm.
Maybe loss of grandparents, which is a loss, but it's more of a, reverence for the 90 plus years on earth. I
Yeah.
never experienced a shattering loss, never experienced grief before. And so on January 22nd, 2022, I lost my business partner, Patricia Moreno, to cancer. She was diagnosed stage 4 cancer a little over a year before that, and then had a hell of a year battle.
Mm.
Um, and from the moment of diagnosis those 14 months, those every single day was remember your practice, remember your practice, remember your practice, because we talk about spiral. This was like a supercharged spiral. Like if I let myself go one little bit, I could be gone for the whole day.
Wow.
Um, and then when she passed in January, so a little over a year ago, I thought I was ready for it because I'd lived every day, not every day knowing it was coming, but for a while knowing it was coming. There's really no words for me to explain what it was. It was a freight train running through my life, and I just left with the ragged shards of what was there. I gave myself time to grieve, and I gave myself time to step away and cry on the floor and do nothing. And I just know that I'm lucky to have IntenSati. And I didn't cancel a class, and I knew that I could have. I knew that
Yeah.
I could have, but I said, let's try. And so a week later, we turned on the Zoom and hundreds of people streamed in, and we all cried and moved and smiled and remembered and laughed and used this practice that was created to help us express how we're feeling, help us move through a state change, help us acknowledge where we are and not hate where we are, grief, sadness, acknowledge it, and still choose reverence, still choose gratitude, still choose connection, still choose joy. And the gift, one of the many gifts that I've been given, is now the ability to share this practice. Well, I already had that, but luckily I still have that ability, because what Patricia did is she left us the practice that we needed to heal with grief.
Mm.
Because this practice, and she taught us the ultimate lesson when she passed, because for those 20 years that she was teaching, she would always say, it's never about me. You don't need me to feel this way. Right at the end of class, where we're all like high and smiling and
Right. And like dead, and
crying.
like
She
dead
would
in
always
love with
say,
her, right?
she would say, you did this. I didn't
Mm.
do this. You said the words, you moved your body, you did this. This is not about me. You don't need me to feel this way. All you need is to recognize that you have the power, that you have the power to change your state, that you have the power to experience these emotions. And here we're doing the training, and then life is the practice. And so she taught us the ultimate lesson when she left.
Mm.
She said, I taught you that, and you kept coming back to me, because she was this magnet. We couldn't not come back to her.
That's
And so she
absolutely.
left. And
Was
here we
there,
are now.
sorry, was there a moment where you were like, I can't do it without her? Like, was there a moment where you're like, how do
There
I?
wasn't there wasn't I can't. There was I don't want to.
Oh, tell me the
I don't want to do
difference.
this
Can we
without you.
talk
I don't
through
want to do
that?
this without you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that I could. I knew that I could.
How did
I
you know
knew that
that? How did you know that you could?
I had been her business partner for 5 years at that time, and we'd worked together before that, and I'd been her student before that. Um, and she trusted me with everything. So even when I was fully behind the scenes, I was doing a lot already. And then when she got sick, piece by piece, I was already taking over the outward facing parts of the business.
Mm.
Then a few months, 4 months before she passed, she stepped back completely. So I was doing everything. So I knew that I could do it, right? I can write a series, I could teach a class. And I already was doing all the back end stuff. So I knew that. So I knew on like a logistical sense that I could do this. And I knew I was good at it. I knew I'd been practicing for a really long time. I knew I believed in this more than anything, so that it came naturally. I didn't have to force it. And Patricia was always saying, I know you can do this. I know you're the one who can do this. You're the only one who can do this. And I know you can do it. And I remember a few weeks before she passed, she looked at me and she just said, but you know, you don't have to, right? Like, don't do it for me. You know, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. thought there's nothing else in the world I would rather do. There's nothing, what, how could I choose something better than this?
Right. What?
Of
I'll
course,
go
I'm
work
going
at
to
the bank.
continue. Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about IntenSati is that ingrained in the practice is this 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of the class where we share honestly about what's going on in our life. So I knew I didn't have to hide for a second what I was going through.
Yeah.
And I could step into class like this with tears running down my face and tell the class where I was, and then tell them where I'd like to be,
Mm.
and then step into a practice that would help me climb that ladder and move up that scale of consciousness and move up that emotional vibration. If I didn't, maybe I didn't get from depression to joy, but maybe I got one step up,
Right.
one step up.
Right.
And I knew I could do it because I had the fire inside. There's nothing I want more than this. And I knew I could do it because I had practice. And I knew I could do it because I had a community and a practice that supported it.
That's basically like the recipe for everything that you just said, right? You're like, I have the knowledge, I have the intention. I think the third part's impeccable. I think it's impeccable that having the community around you. I think it's the other thing we're craving. I think it's the other thing we're
Yeah,
craving. And it's such a beautiful part of, I mean, it's how I know you is through this community.
I know.
It's been a really beautiful part, I think, of all of this. I would think about the Patricia's memorial, and just like it was one of the most powerful things I had ever sat,
Mm-hmm.
right? How many people were at that, do you
Mm-hmm. 300
think?
live in
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. I was so
Yeah.
touched by all of that. What was that like for you?
Yeah.
Just like more overwhelming than anything?
Well, that day was, I mean, it was many things, but I planned all of it. So there was this aspect too of not being fully in it emotionally because I wanted to make sure everything was right and everyone got there. I was the one taking care of it too. So I think that was a little bit of padding as well,
Mhm.
not diving all the way in emotionally. We also had private memorial in LA, and every day. It was in April, so it'd been months after she passed. So I'd had a lot of time. I wasn't going in super fresh. Um, but it was, honestly, it was exhilarating to see all those people in that room
It was so
moving through
powerful.
all of her different practices, from her
Yeah.
aerobics to her dance to IntenSati. Her kids are there, her wife is there. People, the first person who ever gave her a job in fitness was there. Like everyone, to people who just found the practice on Zoom and never met her in person, like spanning really the decades and decades that she taught fitness even before IntenSati. And it's such an incredible testament to the way that she built community. And I acknowledge that what I'm stepping into has been given to me. That I walked into this community that already was devoted to this practice, already like stood up and said, "We will be here." I
Mhm.
talked to a grief counselor, and she said, "Prep yourself for the secondary loss. Like you've had
Mm.
your primary loss, and there might, your community might fall away now that she's gone." And
Wow.
I said, "I will prep myself for secondary loss, and you don't know us. Like that's not the
I'm like,
one.
that's a zero.
We might have another loss, but like you don't know us." So really, the community is yes devoted to her. Like I get it. Like I would go. I say I would
But
follow
that's
her
a really
example.
beautiful
I'd
thing that
prep
it's like
before
it.
her. Like I would.
Yeah, no, it doesn't even occur to you to like. I mean, that's a really beautiful part of who you are as a person, but like, it doesn't even occur to you to be offended by that. I mean, if you knew Patricia, you couldn't be offended by that. But it
No,
seems like it's really changed you. Do you think it's really changed you?
the grief, the loss,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. And I say this, and I say it sensitively. I would give everything and anything to change what happened, but I would not want to go back living the way I was before I experienced grief.
Tell me everything.
Grief itself has opened me up in a way that I don't know that anything else could, or at least nothing else had before. This understanding that there's so much more, and this is what I teach and preach, but finally the understanding that we're so much more than a body, that there's so much more than just these finite years on earth. And really, we talk about energy is everything, but really understanding that we are made from energy, and there's this oneness. It's not just we're all humans or we're all on this earth, but really we're all part of this one energy. So there's that part. There's this connection to the divine that I'd never had before, that I'd never experienced before. I had it, but I didn't have access to it.
Can you say more
So
about
grief
that?
has opened.
Can you say more about
Yeah.
how that's like a dark night of the soul kind of thing? Can you say, because I want people must understand this.
Yeah. So what it feels like is that for the first 35 years of my life, I just been seeing what's in front of me. And all of a sudden it's like an eye opened in the back of my head and I can't turn around and see it, but I know there's this whole other world back here. Like there's a peek behind the curtain that there's like the parts of, like, I get signs from Patricia. I hear her voice. I can ask her a question and I can hear her answer and I know it's her. It's not the answer I give all the time, right? If it was my own mind, it wouldn't be giving that answer. So I really confidently feel like I can hear her, I can feel her, I can call her in, I can ask for a sign and a sign comes. And that's amazing. But it's also this like hard thing to describe, this feeling of twilight or something, just like the sky above me opened and I finally realized there's more to life than the eye can see.
Love that.
And I don't fear death for myself anymore. I'm not inviting it.
Right.
Certainly now, but I really thought like death is the end. And I know now that it's not. I know that it's not.
Has it helped you? I mean, I mean, I was in a very dark, dark space for most of COVID and had like a big relationship loss. And I went into probably the darkest spiral I've ever gone into ever.
Mm,
And I think when I was in that kind of depth and darkness, it just demanded a different kind of spirituality. It just demanded
mm-hmm.
a different kind of opening and reliance. And it just did. I don't have
Yeah.
any to say it. And I think it's nothing like what you're saying, though I don't believe in comparative suffering, so it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of understand what you're saying in that it's like it's bigger. I think about it recently did some psychedelics and it was like sort of in the best way possible, like nothing matters. In the best way possible,
Yes.
like nothing matters. So like
Yes.
let's do it.
Yes. Yes. Grief has been such a psychedelic journey. It's the only time I experienced a psychedelic situation without psychedelics. Really, it's that feeling, right? Of seeing the underbelly of everything. So
Yeah.
there's that divine aspect, but then there's also just the clearing that happened, clearing of priorities. What's important? Where's my energy going? It just everything got so clear what I'm willing to spend my time on and what I'm not.
What'd you
What's
let go
important
of?
to me and what's not.
What'd you shift?
What's first and foremost for me is people, the relationships with the people in my life. And that those are the people I see on a regular basis. It's my
Yeah.
wife, Kellen, Patricia's wife, and her daughters, who I see every day.
What a
The people that
special
I love,
relationship
my
you have with
family,
those girls. Oh my God.
they are the lights of my life. My
Mhm.
wife and I are trying to have our own baby. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to have room to love one of my own. I love someone else's kids this much. But what if I explode when I have my own? What's going to
I think
happen?
you'll be okay. I'm real excited for that baby. I'm real excited for that baby.
No, I certainly am too. I adore them. But it's the people I see, it's the people I don't see, like you, people I just that are just in my sphere.
Yeah.
And then my community, some people I don't even really know in my community that come to class, but wanting to be more present to the connection with those people and putting that first before, even though work is so intertwined now with that, but putting it before work, putting it before anything else that I was putting before personal connections.
Mm.
Um, Patricia was really my biggest personal connection. My wife knows that. Like, she was the center of my world. Um, and it's like if the sun exploded, it's like,
Yeah.
what it even would be left if that happened? And I'm now understanding what's left.
Here we are.
And yeah, here we are. And also, like, the experience that life goes on, that I can get through that, that really was what I thought of when you were talking about this new level of spirituality, that of being carried, of like, I should not have made it, is how I felt. Like, how could I have survived that? And the fact that I did gives me such a deeper belief that there's this strength and there's this energy greater than what I can see and feel.
Wow. That's the whole story. Well, and of all the people in the world that appreciates us saying that, it's Patricia. So here we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's take our foot off the gas of emotions for a second. Take a breath. I have a very tactical question,
Okay.
which which is like, what do you do? What do you do? Like, can you talk to us? You know, you're such a light. You shine through the screen. If you know her in person, she shines through the screen. You just see her, she shines. What is that maintenance like? How can we be more like you? You wake up in the
Oh,
morning,
that's
kiss Liv. I'd kiss Liv. I love Liv. That's her wife. But
yes,
what's your
my
morning
wife.
practice
Yes.
like? Do you have a night, do you have night practice too? Like, what do you do to, maintain this?
Yes. Daily practice to me, that's a must. And that's something I learned from Patricia. And that's something that I teach in our communities. We have daily practices that switch each month that are related to our themes in IntenSati. So I I'm lucky in that way that I get to decide every month what our focus is. And it's always in line with whatever I'm feeling. So I have like, custom practices every month. But no, I wake up every morning. I do silent practice before anything. So, right now what it is hand in my womb, calling them spirit baby. It's different, in different stages of my life, but it's silent, light breath, focusing my attention where I want my attention to go that day. And what I share with my community is that the best time to do a morning practice is in that groggy state, right? When you're coming out, you're still in the theta brain waves. And quite honestly, I don't do that. I get up and brush my teeth and then I do my morning practice because
Because you're
Liv, my wife, will.
human. I love that about
Yeah.
you. You're like,
And
because I
because I
don't like
love
dirty
sleeping.
teeth, like what
And
the
because I love sleeping. My wife makes fun of me because when the alarm goes off, I like I jump up. Like I do my like 30 seconds and then I'm out of bed because otherwise I'll fall back asleep. So I brush my teeth, which awakens me, and then I do my morning practice, usually um 5 to 15 minutes of guided meditation, and have to move every day, whether it's a walk, whether it's IntenSati. Used to be bike riding, used to bike over to the girls. I used to live in New York. Now I'm in LA, and I consider the winters in LA cold. I don't know who I am. So these cold LA winters, I haven't been biking.
it's too
But
cold to bike. Oh boy.
yeah, it's like 60 degrees.
No, I moved to the
No, but
south. I'm exactly the same way. I'm like, oh my God, it's freezing. It's like 45. I'm like, oh boy. Hard to go
yeah,
back.
yeah, but movement is a must. And
Yeah.
it's
Why?
I've because that for many it's true. For me, it's the truest out of all the things, that's my state changer. Music and movement.
Yeah.
One doesn't happen without the other. I don't move without music. So it's music and movement. The state changed because I get to focus on something else because of whatever's happening inside my body, all the endorphins, all the blood moving, the heavy breathing. That certainly is doing something. And it's just, I get to take myself out of whatever I'm doing. I can't multitask. I can't be checking emails. I can't be having a conversation with someone. I get to totally interrupt the pattern of what I was doing, do something that I know works for me, and get that high afterwards. Get that rush
I love that.
that works for me.
So
Yeah,
that's the morning practice, some quiet guided meditation, bringing in the good stuff, and then some kind of movement.
yeah. The movement doesn't always happen in the morning, but it happens every day, and that's best case scenario. But I feel it when it doesn't. When I don't, I feel
Yeah.
it when I don't do it.
Isn't it amazing? I know it's like you get a tolerance to feeling spiritually fit and then
Yeah,
because sometimes like I won't do my practice and I'll feel terrible. And then I'll like just have this random thought, kind of what I was saying at the top of the hour. Like, I don't even know. I lived in like the most addicted, angry, resentful body. And I don't feel good because I didn't do my meditation practice. It's so
Yeah,
funny to like the only con of leveling up is that you feel so different because you know what it is to
I
feel
know.
good.
I know. Once you know, you can't unknow, which is the good news and the bad news.
Toothpaste is out of the tube, you know it.
Yeah.
So anything else? Do you do anything at night or
Yeah.
I just feel
No.
like you're a journaler. You're
I
not
was
a
like, yeah, that
journaler. I'm
sounds like
like
a
so
great idea.
shocked by this information.
No, I so here's the thing. My morning practice changes monthly because I create morning practices for the IntenSati membership. So sometimes there's journaling included, sometimes it's
Oh,
visualization,
this we're
sometimes
just
there's
getting
spoken
what's going on
affirmations.
this month. Okay. You
Yeah,
gotta stay
whatever's
tuned
going
to
on this
Lucy
month.
to know what's happening for her next month. I always want to know what you're doing.
Yeah, my wife journals. She's written like books and books and books and books. She journals for pages and pages each day. I don't. I jump on and off the journaling train. It's one of those things too. I feel better when I do it.
I
I
know.
feel like maybe I'll listen back to Lucy, listen back to this podcast. You feel better when you do it. You
I'm
feel
doing
better when
Artist
you
Way
do
right
it.
now, and I can't get to,
Yeah.
sorry, I can't. It's really hard for me to do the 7 out of 7 of morning
Yeah.
pages. And my friend Laura said to me, it was so annoying because I would have said this to her, when that happens. And she
Yeah.
said, well, seems like if you're really resistant against it, it probably seems like something you need to do. And I was like, oh, it's so
Yeah.
true. That resistance, I probably really, I'm really realizing how blocked I am as an artist. Have you ever done Artist Way? I'm sure you have, right?
No, Liv has done it
Oh
many
my God.
times.
Lucy, it's like the most surprising of all the things on the podcast. It's the most surprising piece of information.
I know. I've done morning pages. I've done mind I've done, in and out of that, but I've never done full artist way.
Hmm. It's really an interesting process, I'll tell you. I've never done it all in. I'm doing it all in. It's like boggling my mind.
Yeah.
Well, my love, I think this is a beautiful place for us to pause. We're going to have you on again because there's like 18,000 things that we haven't even gotten to. But what else do you need us to know? Is there anything else that we're missing in this beautiful episode of opening our hearts and sharing with everybody where we're
I
here?
think I appreciate so much the wonderful things you said about me and that you see in me. And I just want the reminder that that I don't they don't journal, they don't do this and that really handling perfectionism hasn't something I've really worked through in my life, and I never want to be, especially in an industry or the niche of this industry that is very positive. I never want to give off the air that things must be positive and you have to only have positive thoughts and you have to be happy all the time. I think we've gone through that on this conversation that we can do this work and also not be happy on all the time. We can go through this work and still have negative thoughts, and not only is that good, but that's life, that's natural, that's what will happen. And not spiritual bypassing has really been a big part of my learning in experiencing wellness and spirituality, because I wanted to dive in and I wanted to live in just love and light. I thought maybe that was possible, and learning that the spectrum of all of the emotions are still going to be there, even if I set these intentions, even if I did these practices. And not only is that okay, but that will deepen this practice that I have, and that will allow me to experience greater joy if I allow myself to sit with a great sorrow. And that's what it is to be who I am. And you know what we do in IntenSati, it's joy on demand. It's joy in 60 minutes or less, right? That's what it is. And there's the whole 360 degrees of the entire feeling wheel that exists too.
Right.
And so I guess what it is just back to IntenSati, having awareness for where we are, non-judgment for where we are, and then setting the intention to choose where we'd like to go next. For me, that's the big lesson.
I mean, I have nothing to say to that, and that's pretty remarkable. Lucy, where Lucy, since everyone's probably completely obsessed with you, I sure hope you are. If you're not obsessed with Lucy after that, maybe it's a different podcast for you. I don't know what to say, but where do we know you better? I, where do we know you better? Where do we find you?
You can find me and IntenSati if you want that joy on demand, if you want to come to a class today, tomorrow, live or on demand, IntenSati.com, INTENSATI, IntenSati.com. You can find us on Instagram at IntenSati, everywhere, IntenSati, you Google it, you find us. And I'm Lou.Osborne on Instagram. That's
Amazing.
usually where I am. TikTok, trying to get that going, but
I know it's so hard, but the government's about to ban it, so don't worry about it.
I
Um,
know, I know.
I'm sort of hoping because that means I don't have to get involved. Whatever.
I
I
know.
love you. Thank you. You're the
I love you,
best. I
Molly.
love you so much. Thanks for coming
I
on the
love you. Any